Welcome guys, gals, and non-binary pals to this week's episode of Buffy Boys, your weekly review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from a queer, literary and feminist perspective. My name is Joel, I'm one of your hosts, and with me as always is your other host, the handsome
Brian. Hi.
See, you said it.
I didn't.
So this week we are very happy to welcome you to Buffy Boys to talk about Season 5, Episode 2 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Real Me.
That's it, yep. So this was first aired on October 3rd, 2000, approaching 2001 now. It was directed by David Grossman, who last directed Yoko Factor, and written by David Fury, who last wrote Primeval, so quite recent both of them there. And yeah, hi Joel, how are you?
Good, excited, pumped.
Yeah. Are you more pumped about this episode of Buffy or your new nerd gaming headset?
I am equally excited about all the joys you bring into my life, be it discourse or be it a headset that lights up pretty colors when I shoot the aliens on the video game.
I wonder if you get it synced up so it would fire when you like pull your trigger.
I'm sure there's a whole subreddit of like third party hacks and all that kind of stuff, which I will gleefully dive into. So once again, you've bought me a birthday present. Thank you very much. An early birthday present, which comes with the paying you will subject yourself to from having to see me use and enjoy the birthday present. So
yeah, it's truly a
trope.
It is truly the gift that continues harming whenever I get you something, because I have to get you stuff that I know you'll like, but the stuff I know you'll like is awful.
Yeah.
So
speaking of harm, do you want to kick us off with
remember that time I got you a sonic screwdriver remote control for the TV,
and
you had to twist it specific ways
that's a deep cut. Yeah, so it was based on the same technology that they used to make the Harry Potter wand remote controls.
It was also just a really nice replica of the
and it actually worked pretty well. There was a period in our life where we would lower and raise the volume on the TV and all that using a sonic screwdriver. It's true.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
You should take that out actually.
Yeah, that'd be a good nice one to have out. Our bronze banter for the week is extremely topical in more ways than one.
Do you want to kick us off with Buffy on Summary first?
Oh, Buffy on Summary, yeah, I'll do that.
See, I had a great transition I was doing, and you crashed in with your thing.
Sorry. Have any people ever heard of
closing the goddamn door? Why are we doing Panic at the Disco references?
Well, you said you crashed in with a...
That's fair point. Yeah.
So, okay. Dawn writes in her diary how much she hates being Buffy's kid sister. Harmony's inept minions raid the magic shop for books on Slayers. Giles thinks about taking up the lease. Dawn is harangued by a maniac. Harmony attacks the Summers house ineffectually. Dawn is taken hostage by a minion. Buffy stakes all the gang except Harmony. It's pretty accurate.
Someone learned the word harangued before they wrote that review, I think.
Ross Cavini knows the word harangued already.
True, very true. But I'm never certain she was the one who writes those summaries.
It's hard to say.
It feels like
it could have been a PhD candidate.
Absolutely. So in terms of bronze banter this week, fresh off the mind oven. Last night we watched it was last night, wasn't it?
It was last night, yeah.
Last night we watched the first episode of HBO's new I think hotly anticipated program Lovecraft Country.
Yeah.
Which is based off a 2016 novel.
Oh, 2016?
2016,
I thought it was much older than that.
Yeah, fairly recently. And it's a very intriguing premise, I think, for a story to start off with. Basically, it's, derives a lot from Pulp Fiction, particularly the cosmic horror and the big house horror of H.P. Lovecraft, commonly known in kind of various Eldritch horrors, Cthulhu, all of that kind of stuff. What we've probably mentioned before on this podcast, but if you're not aware, to reiterate, is that one of the very problematic factors is that H.P. Lovecraft's writing is his concepts are really compelling. His horror is really strong. He also was a thoroughly racist person.
Yeah, a really disgusting person.
Like really virulently racist.
And it also translated into his content a reasonable amount, right? Yeah,
so basically anything that's looking out to the skies is usually great, but anytime he discusses black people, Jewish people, Irish people, bizarrely, he just has a bevy of QAnon opinions, and he's written poetry about how degenerate and animal-like people of colour and all this kind of stuff. So that has always been a problematic factor in the Lovecraft experience. And what Lovecraft Country does, amongst other things, is it's set in we had trouble figuring out the exact period, but it's around 1950s, yeah. And it features a young black man who comes home from the Korean War, and his father has gone missing. The guy is a big fan of pulp novels, and part of it is kind of basically taking a narrative and elements.
Do we say he's black?
I believe so. I did.
Okay.
It's a very black led program, and very I think from the get go is very much kind of in for that conversation, and in taking the elements that are good from what Lovecraft did, from that kind of writing, and also reappropriating the elements from him and from that writing, and putting them into a black narrative and giving agency to black people.
It's the wonderful kind of like it's traditionally seen as like a post-colonial kind of approach to literature, which is like writing back against the empire, where you take their structures and you manipulate it for your own cause. It's a very queering kind of property. Where and this text specifically highlights like Lovecraft is a writer within this universe, and as in like, you know, it's not set in a Lovecraft novel or story or setting. He's a writer in the universe, and he's criticized by the characters. One of the characters says he likes the writing, but my gosh, is he a disgusting racist? Essentially.
So it's essentially So it's set ostensibly in our universe, where Lovecraft was a writer, and to be honest, we haven't quite gotten into necessarily the surrealist or the fantasy aspects of it yet in the first episode, but it's implied that some aspect of this either is actually bleeding into the real world or is reflecting in the real world, or I suspect there might be some kind of a magical realism element to it to a certain degree, because like without significant spoilers, just things like encountering very monstrous racism, and then those racists literally become monsters in the course of the episode and stuff like that. But it's
visually great so far.
It borrows, so it's HBO. So we're kind of starting off on good foot. It borrows a lot, not just plot-wise or theme-wise, rather, from the recent Watchmen series. I think
it's wonderful to see two very prominent HBO high production value properties, specifically taking texts which are not traditionally black and saying, no, fuck you. Yeah, here it is. It's black and it's better, to be honest.
Yeah, and there's a fascinating interplay there, because for all the quality of the original Watchmen graphic novel, one of the criticisms is that Alan Moore doesn't write race well, and that the black characters, which were very minor in the Watchmen graphic novel, were very tokenistic. So you're reclaiming that, and obviously the original novel, one for Lovecraft Country, seems to have been about reclaiming that as well. But yeah, the opening scene in the first episode of Lovecraft Country is a very high glossy kind of Korean War battlefield, where basically main character's having a dream, and there's the walkers from
H.G. Wells'
War of the Worlds. There is a Lovecraftian monster. There is a famous black baseball player, Jackie Roberts, I think is his name.
Okay.
Jackie Robinson.
Okay.
Appears. He's the guy who wielding the baseball bat, and it's all this melange of different imagery as well. And
it's very importantly, he's reading John Carter from Mars. Is that right?
So it's Princess of Mars, which is one of the Edward Burroughs John Carter planetary fantasy novels, and there's an interesting conversation about how in those stories is kind of that, you know, there's a very clear setting, and the people go on adventures and they succeed and they get the girl, but also they change the world and all that. But the character of John Carter is an ex-Confederate soldier. So I think it was a really strong image to start with from the start. How do you enjoy something when it has such deep flaws?
Yeah, and the main character says, you know, yeah, it has deep flaws and that person's bad, but like I'm enjoying it. And like I think there's something radical about finding enjoyment in stuff where you're like, where the person who wrote it was not writing for you.
Yeah.
And it's also an important thing to note is that like the kind of the culture of having like texts that are, you know, possible to enjoy as queer people, as people of color. That makes it sound like I'm a person of color. I'm not. I'm so white. But
people of color.
Yeah. Is a reasonably recent thing. I mean, like, you know, being able to like write text as black people is so recent. and being able to write open text about queerness is so recent. So being able to see yourself in a text is a very recent thing, and people had to find enjoyment and find ways to write or read back against these things for decades, and that's I think what probably happened here is that, like, essentially you've taken someone who was probably a huge fan of H.P. Lovecraft, the writer, I presume, of the book, and he said, well, no, I really enjoy this stuff, even though it's fucking awful. So here's what I'm doing about it. So, yeah, I'm really fascinated to see where it goes.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about in literary theory about colonialism, but in a metaphorical or theoretical sense. And to decolonize something, you have to first remove the colonizer from the house before you can rebuild it. And part of that is temporarily occupying the house and the land before it's remodeled in a new image. And like, that's what minorities have to do with text. It's like, as he very astutely said, we can't wait around for there just to be a bevy of great literature that's already available for our kind, as it were. Do you know, you have to take it, reshape it, and from that build something new. So I think it doesn't have to be an either or. Yeah. Of
we do deserve better representation, A, yeah, and B, it is a fulfilling and if, like, it's not it's certainly not a requirement. You don't have to go off and consume texts that aren't to your liking. You can not consume texts if you want. Like, that is 100% an option. But if you're doing it, you may as well do it in a way that would piss someone off.
Mm-hmm. So I think if we're speaking about kind of taking over and reappropriating someone else's narrative in this episode of Buffy, we see the injection of a new character directly into the Summers household with the introduction of Dawn Summers. What do we think of this all here episode?
I am fully prepared to become a Dawn Summers apologist. Mm-hmm. I think this is a very odd representation of Dawn in this episode. I think it's a little less bratty than she becomes. It's a little more favorable and a little more innocent. But one of the things that stood out to me the most about this episode was that the character interactions, the group dynamics, they're all solidified so beautifully and so nicely because they're being viewed from an outside perspective of Dawn, someone who can be observational and can create very solid perspectives on these characters. Like Willow and Tara are lovely and together, and they're great, and you kind of get to see that greatness because of the extreme POV imposed in this episode. It was I actually quite like the episode.
Yeah, I think it's one of these. Obviously, we may end up eating our words, but my initial feeling is, on a very surface level, I don't like Dawn because she's annoying. It's like, she is meant to be annoying. Yeah. Like, you're meant to sharing some of Buffy's frustration, be annoyed by the problems she introduces, like her allowing the Harmony pass into the house and giving her invitation is frustrating. But also, for those of you who have siblings, I think it's meant to actually evoke that irritation you get from a sibling at times, and I
wouldn't know that feeling.
Well, I will say nothing. My sister's 12, she's lovely. But I think you're absolutely right that in terms of, it's kind of a sneaky thing, because initially it seems like, okay, we're seeing from Dawn's perspective and we're kind of establishing her through her position in the dynamic, but they are also sneaking in, we're going to really solidify the ensemble dynamics in a way that maybe we actually haven't previously. We're really kind of litigating, this is who Giles is, this is who Spike is, and all this kind of stuff. And I think both of us were struck that I think there's a huge number of characters in the episode, really kind of the whole ensemble is there. Joyce is there, Harmony, Spike, everyone. And we see Anya, we see interactions between all of them. And really, this does feel like a very ensemble-driven show. Whereas, as I think a lot of the previous seasons, while that's definitely there, you often get pairings. Two people are together, maybe three people, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and the core four really led the show. Whereas this episode, I think the core four took an equal footing to say, like, you didn't. Well, obviously, Buffy gets more of a good showing here than other characters, but say, like, Joyce gets an equal amount of screen time as Willow does, as Giles does, as Tara does. Like, Tara has a scene separate to Willow for the first time in this episode, except for the scene where she got chased by the dog, the
werewolf.
No, it wasn't a werewolf. It was the
demon dog.
bringers from the
gentleman,
yeah. Or the scene where she has with Anya very briefly. But she has a very nice scene in this episode where she kind of like emotes with Dawn's being outside of this very close knit group, and it felt like she got a look in a way that she hasn't really previously. And Anya gets a lot of characterization in this episode, in what is the beginnings of her capitalist money grubbing ways, which I fucking love. But yeah, it was actually I deeply identify with that. Like I absolutely love money. Yeah. But yeah, it was the group dynamics were really on show here. I think not only does Dawn give a really good perspective on that, I think her injection really solidifies the familial structures of the show, where Buffy previously was extremely only childy. She kind of felt like she could flit in and out of her mom's life, etc.
This very successful, everyone liked her, all that kind of stuff.
This gives her a real grounding as a character. Like she has a something weighing her down, something bringing her back to the nest, something to really kind of give her a bit of growing up as well, because you can't be as childish when you are someone's older sibling. And
I think they've reached a point where I think to continue to escalate the threat to a certain degree or problematize her life after she's already managed to deal with college and Maggie Walsh and the mayor and all that kind of stuff, there's an element to jump the shark to that. But I think this is actually quite clever, because instead of something pushing in front of her, she's actually kind of being pulled down from behind. And it still gives you that stuff you need at the start of the season, which is like there's genuine conflict. Her and Dong it's not a situation where they can just talk and resolve the issues that they're going to have with each other in a single conversation. But it doesn't feel forced necessarily. So I think one of the things kind of in terms of what happens through the episode, it is fairly straightforward. It's basically just that Harmony has a shitty gang. She kidnaps Dong. They get Dong back. And it's really just about showing the dynamics. But as we would have mentioned previously, but it's worth reiterating, is that initially when Dawn's character was conceived, she was written as a younger
12-year-old
12-year-old, and while she matures and is rewritten from when Michelle Trachtenberg comes on board, these initial couple of scripts she comes across very, very young and very
and she gets retooled a couple
episodes absolutely it's a very interesting kind of long play, because it's really, even in this episode, like looking back, we can see clues of things, but there's no indication why Dong is here.
It's one of the absolutely bizarre things that we've really lost in this rewatching of Buffy, and that you can't really, that's lightning in a bottle that can't be put back in, is like the initial shocks that it delivers that we're now so numb to. Booker's currently licking his butthole. That's nice. Anyway, so you have Buffy dying in season 1. You have Angel becoming Angelus in season 2. You have Buffy killing Angel. You have the mayor blowing up.
Do you know what I was thinking about the other day? It's a great scene is when the mayor turns into a snake and they all turn on him. That's a great twist.
It really is. And then obviously the just Primeval not being the finale of season 4, all this stuff which is such gripping episodic week on week TV watching, it kind of gets lost when you've known about this since you were 12, which we both have, obviously.
People binge Buffy, but it is at its core an episodic weekly television program.
So I'll say it a million times, one of the best things about Buffy is that it never eschews its TV structures or its TV format. It leans into it and it really gets strength, and the fact that it can be so monster of the week at times means that when you get episodes like The Body, or Hush, or Restless, they hit so much harder. The Body is only as strong as it is because it arrives in the middle of a season that's so deeply genre heavy and so structured. Anyway, it's brilliant. So. Are you crying, Joel?
No, I've late onset hay fever.
Oh yeah. So with this episode, what must this have been like watching for the first time? The Buffy boards must have been going insane.
Or more insane.
It's just so what do you do with this information for the first time? Now I'm just not only do I accept Dawn as a character, I accept her as Buffy's genuine sister.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's maybe a bit of a queer narrative kind of going on there, is that kind of like found family and accepted family, etc.
Yeah, like she's like literally that's constructed family.
Yeah, no, it really is.
And I think there's like an indication of that episode in this because at the end when she's writing her diary, Dawn's like, you know, they all think I'm just Buffy's little sister. Wait until they get the big surprise, and Dawn has no fucking clue she's the key.
Yeah.
She has, that's just a complete red herring.
I don't think it's necessary. I think textually it makes sense. I think that's a metatextual red herring, if you get me. I don't think that's inconsistent with her voice or her.
No, but see, I think it's both. I think it is consistent with her voice. But I think the writers could say, "What do you mean? That's just what a little girl might say." Yeah. But like, you don't write that when people are like, "Who is this character?"
Yeah,
and
true.
Like, a red herring isn't pejorative in this sense.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It's just like it's muggy in the waters.
Yeah, no doubt.
Tantalizing.
Yeah. But no, it's such an odd, and she I think Michelle Trachtenberg does a great job here.
Yeah,
I think she fits in very nicely. She she has genuine conflict with Buffy. They feel at odds with each other, and like, you know, her engagement with Xander actually does bring out the best in Xander. You know, of like the best of what we've seen of his character so far, which is like, you know, genuine, funny, present, and caring for the people around him. And it just highlights Joyce as being this like shining like icon of motherhood. It's very interesting.
Yeah. It's such a weird retroactive continuity as well, because as much as we can make excuses for Dawn and how she could have existed, I don't think you actually get Buffy to where she is while having Dawn in the background. Do you know what I mean? Yep. Like Dawn knowing Angel at one point, and you know, they say all that has happened. But I think if that was actually to play out in the show, it would have just... This would not have been the first time she's been kidnapped. Do you know what I mean?
No, absolutely not. You're right. I thought the opening of the episode was quite strong in the sense that it's Buffy training with Giles, and it's bizarrely in the back room of the magic shop before he's bought the magic shop. So I'm not sure what's going on there, to be honest.
Yeah, and I was thinking, like, if you really want to stretch it, you could be like, oh, you know... One of the reasons they're aware of the magic shop, or he decides to take it, he's like, and of course they have this great training space that they rent out or whatever, but it's a little blurry. But yeah, she's like doing Karate Kid handstands, and she's trying to basically get much more deeper in touch with the core of what the Slayer is, which I love, that kind of inward journey for a hero.
Yeah, and she's doing this, and she's doing it with the power of, like, you know, some focusing crystals, which of course we all know work wonders for handstands.
Kyber crystals.
And while she's doing a one-handed handstand on like a pole, Dawn comes in and like
fucks it all.
She like she does this perfect I was very upset actually the other day. I was talking to in our family WhatsApp group, and my brother Kieran, who listens to the podcast, was he was like, you know, I'm watching a movie that's 270 minutes long. Guess what it is? And I was like, is it Synecdoche, New York? Because as we all know, Synecdoche, New York is really long, but actually it's only 2 hours long, so oops. And it was actually Lawrence of Arabia, but he was like, Synecdoche, that's the favourite word of your podcast. And I was like, that is true. But it's very synecdochal here. Dawn literally like drops a crystal onto the other two, trying to stack it up together, and like adding an extra element disrupts everything. It interrupts and crashes Buffy down and makes her fall. I mean, so Dawn adding her own stuff onto it leads to the death of Buffy, essentially. You know,
I've just realised now that Synecdoche, New York is a pun.
Synecdoche.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all come together for me now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. It encapsulates Dawn and what she brings and complicates very well. And I think that, you know, I think in terms of establishing those family structures, you kind of have to create a stratification, which would be really disingenuous if after the end of season 4, when they all come together as equals, to then introduce some kind of Willow's annoyed at this or Xander's annoyed at that. So introducing a person who is not part of that power of 4 or whatever, do you know what I mean?
It's a much better structure. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, no, it was really good. In some ways, that's kind of the extent to the structure of the episode. I mean, you have lots of stuff. Buffy saving Dawn, which is going to become a recurring trope. The structures of the family. You have one great line where Dawn says that she thinks Tara and Willow are so cool, and she told her mom one time that she wants to, they're always going off and doing witching stuff together, so she wants to go with them sometimes to see how they do what they do
so
together.
they can teach her how to do what they do.
Yeah, and her mom told her to go upstairs and got very quiet.
Yeah.
I.e., Joyce is aware that they're lesbodians, and Dawn accidentally says she wants to be a lesbian. Anyway, so does Dawn ever have a same-sex interaction in the comics?
Not that I'm aware of, but probably. You know, she is a child here, and she ends up dating Xander long term after Anya dies in the comics.
Awful.
Some
I will
there.
never ever engage with that.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll let you have that one. That is fair. It has very Jacob and
Bella's child.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'll go get this.
It's prima donna.
They're Jacob and Bella's mother's names are Renee and Esme.
Why would Jacob's...
Or not Jacob, sorry. Edward and Bella's parents are
Renesmee, isn't it?
So the baby's called Renesmee. And that's what Jacob falls in love with.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
New Twilight books coming out, apparently.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Are you sure it's new Twilight books, not just new books by Stephanie Meyer?
I'm reasonably certain. Yeah, I know that they released. I think they released one of the, basically years ago. She'd written Twilight again, but from Edgar's perspective. Mm-hmm. I think that's been released, and I think there's new Twilight books in the pipeline. Is what I saw.
Sure.
So
yeah,
we won't be talking about those.
But the other aspect of the episode is really just Harmony coming along, being interrupting being an interrupting blonde woman who threatens Dawn's life. I wonder where we'll see that elsewhere in the season. So yeah, there's a lot of aspects of this episode which reflect the structure of the season coming up, which typical for Buffy, which is great. And yeah, I mean, like, to be honest, otherwise it doesn't serve much of a purpose beyond reintroducing us to the characters and introducing Dawn. I actually though really like it. I think just it's just really on point tonally and structurally, and
it's a lot of fun. And I think Harmony Mercedes McNabb does a great job.
She's always great. She's such a pleasure to watch.
Yeah. I really love that when she's like her whole kind of girl boss thing of trying to like run a gang and kind of being a bit too like, it's funny because she was real mean in real life before she died. And then she's almost too nice to be a vampire in some ways. But when she confronts Buffy, being like, we meet at class. And she's like, I know you, Harmony. We went to school together.
There's a scene where Buffy finds out that Harmony's come and she has minions, etc. And Buffy's like crying, laughing. Apparently, Joss Whedon was off stage trying to, or behind the camera, trying to make Sarah Michelle Gellar laugh as much as possible there, and it really works.
Yeah, you really get
Sarah Michelle Gellar is giving like a stupid laugh that she does later on in the episode, and I was like, I think that's actually like pretty rare to this point, and I think it's actually much more common after this, is like getting genuine Buffy laughs.
Genuine Sarah Michelle Gellar laughs, really. You know, even though she it's very charming, and like Riley, like a big blockhead, was laughing along. It's like, you know who Harmony is.
No, he's such an inserter.
Yeah.
Like, he inserts himself into
he does insert himself into conversations. Absolutely.
So the other big kind of like structure of the episode, interesting thing is Giles buying the magic shop. He does buy it. I love the magic shop as a setting. It's one of my favorite ones. I would say it's number 2 after so if you have 4 settings, I think ranked, they probably go library for me, magic shop, Giles' apartment, and then the
Buffy's house.
Buffy's house, yeah.
Yeah, I find those are definitely the settings. I feel like Giles' house and Buffy's house are really like also rans, because those settings were already there when they had a base of operations, so they'll always feel interstitial to me. But yeah, no, I actually quite like the magic shop. I think as just from a filming point of view, it just gives a lot of options for scenes. People can stand. It's very theatrical because people can stand a little bit off center,
or they can be up in the not the stacks, but the upper areas. You know, when they're like, I know there's some scene where they're all like hanging their legs off it, and it's very cute and very friendly.
People can pop up from behind the counter, and people can be confrontational in the doorway.
Great fighting space.
Yeah, it's like that's the kind of stuff that you have to kind of think about in this. Which which is
very funny, because both this episode and the Angel episode are both about introducing a new location for the season, which really works.
Yeah. So like it was a very fun episode.
Yeah, I agree, and I just think I think this is more akin to the late Buffy tone than what we've seen previously. I think the previous seasons have been much more experimental, much more finding their feet, and very. I think previous seasons leaned more on the monster of the week. I think seasons 5 to 7 lean more on the overall structure of this season. I'm not sure which is better. I think probably the earlier seasons where they really got to explore a concept in an episode. I think these seasons are much less strong in their monsters of the week. But definitely I think we're going to see more episodes in seasons 5, 6 and 7 where the point is just to continue the story.
See, I think when you get this far into a show, you are riffing on, commenting on and building on yourself, as opposed to initially they're building on the Wolfman, or they're building on Dracula, or they're building on Anne Rice, etc. That's what they're reflecting on, and that's fine. I think the other option is often to jump the shark and become repetitive and all that kind of stuff. So I this is like a wild speculation in some ways, but I kind of feel like I want to stand over it, that I feel like the optimum length for a lot of TV shows, particularly genre TV shows, is about 4 seasons. I think that's where you get a good arc, and if you get to a 5th season, you have to be able to innovate in some interesting way. And I think Buffy does that.
Okay, do you want to go into the dusting, Joe? I feel like we said nothing, but like, I mean,
it was fun to listen to.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
so in terms of dusting,
so a couple of Buffy bits. Do you want me to? You okay if I give you a couple?
Yeah, we're cool.
So, apparently Michelle Trachtenberg had written to Joss Whedon asking to be included in a character, included as a character in the show. She also knew Sarah Michelle Gellar, which probably didn't hurt at all, and she was a fan of the show specifically, and I believe she wanted to have the powers that she could talk to the dead and she could have telepathy or something like that.
So, fan service.
Yeah. Another very important plot point for the season is that when Dawn is outside the magic shop because she is not allowed to see a dead body, an insane person. An insane person. I think that's probably the phrase that they use in the season. Probably a good bit.
I think in this context, it absolutely is insanity because it's not mental illness. Whatever you want to say about it, replicating mental illness, she, in a very cosmic horror sense, Glory drives them to insanity.
Glory's not here yet, though. You see. This isn't I don't think Gloria is here, so I think this is actually just somebody because it's just anyone who isn't sane. Anyway, I think we can come up with
that's a good point actually. Well, no, Gloria is here.
I don't think she is. I think she hasn't arrived on Earth yet. I think Dawn
she has, because she was born into Bang, right?
Oh, maybe. I'm not sure. We'll find it.
So essentially, like a mentally ill, or as the show will characterize them.
I think we'll come up with a better phrase for that as we go on, because I don't love the phrase insane in this situation. I think it's very loaded.
A kooky gentleman
identifies, because people who aren't sane can see the key as what it is, i.e. Dawn. So he refers to her as curds and whey, which is, of course, a phrase from Little Miss Muffet, which is a nursery rhyme that Faith referred to in her
prophetic
dream in season 3. So there's a really nice connection. Tom Lenk is one of the vampires. In Harmony's gang, his name was Cyrus, I would say. Yeah, which is kind of funny.
Tom Lenk, who obviously goes on to play Andrew in season 6 and 7. Yeah.
So one of the other vampires is Mort, and he's played by the same guy who played the strongman Gabriel in Carnival, he breaks his arm at one point. It's kind of gruesome. And the main character heals it, and that's an interesting point. Carnival, very interesting show. Must rewatch it. Or
finish it for me.
Yeah, sure. And then Harmony's gang also refer to going back and eating a little bit more of the census taker they got. Eating a census taker, of course, being a famous reference to Silence of the Lambs, where Hannibal Lecter says that he ate the census taker with a Chianti and some lima beans.
Fava beans,
is it? Okay.
Although I think that might actually be from the film. I think it's different in the novel.
I believe it. Okay, so that's all my major Buffy bits. Do you have any, Joel?
Yeah, so this is the starting with this episode. This is the most cast members that are ever in the main credits
in
for Buffy or Angel. Yeah, with the addition last episode of Emma Caulfield as Anya, and this episode with Michelle Trachtenberg.
Which is 9 people, is it?
It gets 8.
8. Okay, and that's going to continue until
Riley leaves.
Riley leaves. Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise I liked a nice little bit of continuity when Giles is taking over the magic shop, and he talks about how
Profitable it is.
Profitable it is, and how they keep managing to get people to take it over, even though Mr. Bogarty, who currently owns it, who dies in this episode, is the third person to die owning the magic shop. And he's like, out of state orders, international, no overhead. Like, this is a fantastic investment, and which is also parallel in the Angel episode. And Buffy's like, this place is a death trap. Like, don't buy this. Yeah, so that's nice. But that's kind of it for me.
Mr. Bogarty, of course, being a reference to when Angel in season 2 referred to the magic shop as the local boogity store. Anyway, okay. Fashion. I didn't take any notes during this episode because I was a bad person, but the fashion points that I thought stood out are that Joyce at one point wears like a tartan kind of top and looks really awful, and Riley comments on how nice it is, but he's wrong. But she's wearing a nice sleeveless like turtleneck top later on in the episode, and that's quite nice. So that's good. Harmony's wearing some glittery gold pants in this episode.
She looks like a specifically glammed up version of Buffy. Whenever Buffy looks a little loose.
Yeah, that's true. Buffy is wearing as our friend Dara noted and sent us photos of previous to us watching it, is wearing a rhinestoned, is it Reebok or Nike or something like that? Puma, huh?
Yes.
Top, and that's a decision that she made. Xander's wearing a tank top under a bad shirt. I'll accept the tank top. Actually, wait, is he, or am I confusing with Angel?
He is. Okay. I think he is, yeah.
And
Dawn is dressed very church lady.
Oh yeah, she is. Well, she's dressed reasonably nicely at the start of the episode. She's wearing an X-Men badge, I think, at one point, which was odd.
Arguably, yeah.
But she's wearing like a nice ombre black to blue top there. But then she changes into a blue dress because she hears that Xander's coming over, and she looks fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, she looks like a youth pastor. Yeah.
And I think then also, Willow and Tara are kind of wearing their like Renaissance fair nonsense witch lesbian clothes, which I love, but also like, what a decision.
One nice note, actually, well, not nice but interesting, is Dawn makes a reference here to not going to Hogwarts, and it's like crack a book sometime. That's a reference specifically to the book series because the Harry Potter film hadn't come out until the year after this episode aired.
I mean, this is deep in the Harry Potter craze. Like it was a craze before the movie. And kind of
I remember. I was there.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay. Death count. What do you have for me, Joe?
Yeah. So a good bit of murder in this episode. So we have Mr. Bogarty, who is listed in terms of his appearances in the episode, brackets only corpse, killed by Harmony's gang. So all of Harmony's gang was staked by Buffy, last of which was Strongman Mort, who was staked by Buffy with a wooden unicorn horn. Beautiful.
Okay, and what is your rating for the episode?
Yeah, I would probably give this episode 8.0 midlife crises.
Okay, great.
It's very solid, enjoyable, no complaints at all. I think it did a pretty good job of what's kind of an unwieldy plot point with Dawn to some degree. Yeah,
agreed. Yeah, I'm going to give it 8.5 census takers out of 10. I have a real soft spot for season 5 specifically. It's the first season I really watched carefully when I was younger, and I like the dynamics, I like the structure, I think you're right, I think the introduction of Dawn could have been horrific, and that she is handled quite well, written quite well, and the characters are all in their voices, they're all well portrayed, and yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed watching it.
Boo, boo, boo.
Even though there was like very little literary criticism to be had. What is wrong with our cat?
Our cat is stretched out on the couch but is fully lying on his back like a person.
Yeah.
It is unsettling. It's like there's a little actor inside of that seat.
Okay, so Joel, the Cordelia chase, let's keep this quick. Great episode. Are you now, or have you ever been? Yeah,
so widely considered to be one of the best episodes of Angel, and a favourite I think it might be Joss Whedon's favourite episode of Angel.
Okay, I know it's Dave Boreanaz's favourite episode of Angel.
So Are You Ever Been? A reference to the kind of the communist witch hunts during the McCarthy era in America. Are you ever been a member of the Communist Party? And essentially, it's a highly structured episode.
Yep.
It's structured around Angel setting the team to investigate any bad things that have happened in the Hyperion Hotel, which was introduced in the previous episode, and in the course of Angel investigating the hotel in the current day, we see flashbacks to it in its heyday when, as we uncover, there was numerous suicides, murders, terrible things happened there. Clearly a possessed and haunted structure, and that potentially there was some monster that was inhabiting it over a long period of time. And then we see that Angel actually lived there for a period in the 50s, before, long after he got his soul, but before he was kind of set on the path he's on now. And
he was looking at treat.
Yeah, he does look very well. It's very kind of clean cut, all American loner kind of,
Yeah, kind of James Deany.
Yeah, exactly. And we cut back and forth. Cordelia and Wesley's main role in the episode is just investigating and trying to piece together what Angel isn't telling them, but they do it very actively, and they really kind of connect when we see characters in the hotel connect in the modern day in a way that makes it feel like they're still involved, even though it's primarily a period piece of Angel by himself in the 50s. And the motivating factor being that he's very disconnected from humanity, he has no interest. He encounters a woman who has stolen the money from her bank where she worked and gone on the run, and is hiding the fact that she's actually of biracial heritage, as opposed to, as she's commonly being able to, in her works, pass as white in the 50s up until now.
So lots of reflection there, paranoia around, especially in Los Angeles, around people hunting out communists, kind of Red Scare.
Yeah,
concern.
Absolutely. So it borrows openly from a lot of great period literature. It has elements of The Shining, it has elements of Psycho, all this kind of stuff. And the motivating factor being that there is a demon in the hotel, a paranoia demon, which is stoking people's fears, turning them against each other.
Whispering in their ears.
In their ears and all that. Turning the homosexual writers against each other, turning the bellhop. You can't call the police when someone else kills themselves, you have to chop up the body, etc. So it's classic kind of cabin fever, building to a pitch, and Angel decides to get involved against maybe his best judgment, but in line with his conscience, helps the woman Judy. And when it all boils over, she turns on him. She's about to be lynched, essentially. So she says it was actually him. He's the monster. They find the blood he was drinking, and the
stuff he was going to use to
exorcise the demon and all that, and they hang him in the lobby of the Hyperion Hotel. And with that, they hang the vampire, they leave, and the paranoia demon manifests and says, you tried to help them, but they'll never, be helped from people like you. And trying to help them actually made them more delicious to eat as a demon.
Yeah, because they had more hope to lose, essentially.
Yeah, and then he's like, do you want to try and help some more people? And Angel says, take them all, and leaves them all to be killed by the hotel and by the demon. And this is obviously very significant to his character, very significant to his arc, and the culmination being that he goes back in the modern day and realizes that the Jugi, the woman he tried to help, is still alive into her old age. The demon has kept her alive in this room in constant...
refers to her as being a meal that lasts a lifetime.
Yeah, in constant fear for 50 years. And he goes back to finally kill the demon, kind of atone, let her go to her rest and all that kind of stuff. The scene at the end where he meets Jugi in the modern day, and she thinks that he's a memory, and she says, I'm so sorry I killed you, I was afraid and all that. And I'm finally going to go outside. I'm just going to rest for a bit. And he kind of lays her down. It's actually really upsetting.
It was really upsetting.
And Dave Boreanaz plays a very gentle Angel who actually, I think, shows more emotion or more personal hurt. Isn't cosmic. It's just individual. Yeah. Which is very affecting. It's probably one of the best episodes of Angel or Buffy for a monster of the week, for a structure. The monster only appears a couple of times.
It's a bad monster design as well.
He's weirdly has a southern accent, but in terms of how it motivates the plot and generates this great friction while showing you only need to have the monster there a little bit for that to work, I think it's really good. And a massive exploration of in a short period of time of who Angel is, what he's about, who the team are, and all of that. There's some great stuff where the demon is trying to make Wesley paranoid. Yeah. And he has some great lines where he's like, I'm not paranoid. Have people been saying that about me? Who's been saying this about me? And it's actually quite good. Yeah. And the idea...
Gunn is called in extraneously again, just as come on, let's shoehorn him in. And it's like, guys, just treat this character with a bit more kindness and smarts.
Yeah. And it's ultimately about forgiveness, about whether he can forgive himself, whether he can be forgiven for his failings. And then at the end, Cordelia is like, well, this place is a nightmare death trap, similar to the Magic Box. I can't wait to never see this place again. And Angel's like, no, we're going to move in here because it was a place of evil, and now it's not, because things can change. And it becomes their base of operations until the start of season 5.
Yeah, and spoilers for the end of Angel season 2, but the whole structure of Angel like sicking a demon on a big group of people who are not necessarily deserving of death will recur at the end of the season.
Yeah,
so what is a really affecting scene.
It's quite a tight narrative development, and I think everyone got great time. I think so many elements in this, introducing a cast for an Angel episode of like 10 people, and kind of all this works together really well. I think it's an episode I would take out and show to people who don't watch Angel, like, this is how you do genre television. So yeah, for me, like a 9. Failed feminist gestures.
Yeah, same. I was going to say not failed feminist gestures. There's a couple of hokey writing aspects to it. The bellhop has like this weird thing where he's like tweaking the entire time.
Thick. It's bizarre.
And just there are a couple of moments of like awkwardness or a bit of fluff writing wise. I think the demon itself, design wise, total nonsense, and the southern accent on him.
Yeah, it's like basically a man in a cape with no arms who floats, has tentacles. Is played by
someone from DS9?
No, someone from Stargate SG1.
Oh, sorry.
A long-term recurring character called Braytak. And like, has a deep southern drawl. It's incredibly idiosyncratic, but like inexplicable.
I think, but like the thing is about this episode, while like I think it's imperfect, I think it's incredibly enjoyable, A, and B, quite sincere and profound. Not profound, there's something profound about it, but it's very it's well executed. I like it.
Yeah. Good. So we will be back next week for Witches episode. It's coming up.
The episode next week is going to be The Replacement.
The Replacement.
Which is the Xander gets swapped bodies.
Oh, very good.
Or gets split.
Yeah.
Kill us both, Spock.
Yes, indeed. A generation introduced that trope. So thanks so much for joining us. We're happy to have you here. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know. Tell your friends and tell the mad women in your attic. And we will see you next time on Buffy Boys.
Yeah, we will. Buffy Boys is the name of this podcast. Good.
Bye.